They thought she was powerless. That was their first mistake. Naomi Carter stood in the marble foyer of the Whitmore estate, her reflection fractured across a dozen crystal chandeliers. Outside, Washington, D.C.'s elite were arriving in black cars that cost more than most people's homes. Inside, she held a pen that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "Just sign it, Naomi." Lucas Whitmore's voice dripped with impatience. Her husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, checked his Rolex like she was wasting his time. Everyone's waiting. Everyone. His mother, Victoria, who'd spent 3 years perfecting her disappointed sigh every time Naomi entered a room. His father, Gregory, who'd never bothered learning where she grew up. His sister, Amanda, who'd laughed when Naomi suggested working instead of hosting charity brunches. The Whitmores were Washington royalty. Old money. Political connections that reached into every corner of power. And Naomi? She was the girl from Sacramento who'd met Lucas at a tech conference 5 years ago, back when his smile felt genuine and his promises sounded real. She looked down at the divorce papers. Clean. Simple. Brutal. The lawyers were very generous, Victoria said from her perch on the settee, her pearls catching the light. You'll walk away with enough to live comfortably. More than you came with, certainly. Amanda snickered into her champagne. Naomi's hand trembled slightly as she uncapped the pen. Not from fear, not from sadness, from the sheer effort of keeping her face neutral when everything inside her wanted to scream. I need a moment, she said quietly. Oh, for God's sake. Lucas ran his hand through his perfectly styled hair. It's Thanksgiving, Naomi. We have 200 guests arriving in 30 minutes. The mayor is coming. Senator Blackwell is coming. Can you please just... I said I need a moment. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Gregory appeared in the doorway, his imposing frame filling the space like he filled every room with assumed authority. Is there a problem? His voice carried the weight of boardrooms and backroom deals. No problem, Dad. Lucas took the papers from Naomi's hands. She's just being dramatic. Naomi watched him set the documents on the antique desk. The same desk where she'd sat countless times, invisible during family meetings about Whitmore Biotech, the pharmaceutical company that had been the family's crown jewel for 3 generations. The company that was currently hemorrhaging money, though they'd never admitted in front of her. You know, Gregory said, walking to the window that overlooked the manicured gardens. I always told Lucas that marrying outside our circle was a risk. Not that you're not lovely, dear, but you simply don't understand our world. Their world, where people were commodities, where love came with prenuptial agreements and exit clauses. I understand more than you think, Naomi said softly. Victoria laughed. Actually laughed. Darling, you worked in some little tech startup in California before Lucas brought you here. You've tried so hard to fit in, and it's been sweet. But let's not pretend you understand the complexity of what we do. Amanda raised her glass. To simple lives and simple people. Something inside Naomi crystallized. She'd spent 3 years shrinking herself, making herself smaller, quieter, more palatable. She'd listened to their jokes about Silicon Valley dreamers and their barely disguised contempt for anyone who'd actually built something instead of inheriting it. She'd smiled through dinners where they dissected her clothes, her education, her ambitions. She'd stayed silent when Lucas started coming home later and later, smelling like perfume that wasn't hers. She'd even stayed silent 6 months ago when Whitmore Biotech's quarterly reports crossed her desk during a routine investment review, and she'd seen exactly how bad things were. But what she did next would shock them. Naomi picked up the pen. The room seemed to exhale. Finally, Lucas muttered. She signed. Her signature looked strange on the paper, disconnected from who she'd been when she'd signed the marriage certificate 5 years ago. That girl had believed in love. This woman knew better. Wonderful. Victoria stood, smoothing her designer dress. Now, if you could collect your things and leave through the back entrance. The guests shouldn't have to witness any awkwardness. The back entrance. Naomi repeated the words like they were in a foreign language. It's better this way, Lucas said, already moving toward the door. Clean break. No drama. Gregory paused beside her. For a moment, something almost like sympathy crossed his face. You'll be fine, Naomi. Women like you always land on their feet. Women like her. He had no idea what kind of woman she actually was. Amanda appeared with a small box. Your things from the bedroom. I had Maria pack them. Well, the things worth keeping anyway. 3 years of marriage. One small box. Naomi took it. Her hands were steady now. I hope you find happiness, she said to Lucas. He barely looked at her. Sure. Yeah, you too. The cruelty of it wasn't even intentional. That was the worst part. To him, she was already gone. Already forgotten. A mistake corrected just in time for the social season. Naomi walked toward the back of the house, her heels clicking on marble that cost more per square foot than her first apartment's monthly rent. She could hear caterers rushing through the kitchen, the string quartet tuning in the ballroom, the hum of a party about to begin. No one followed her. No one said goodbye. She stepped into the November cold, her breath forming clouds in the air. The back garden stretched before her, perfectly landscaped, perfectly lifeless. Beyond it, her car waited. Not the Mercedes Lucas had insisted she drive. Her car. The one she'd driven from California 5 years ago and kept in storage because it didn't fit the image. Naomi opened the trunk and set the box inside. Then she pulled out her phone. One text message. That's all it took to set everything in motion. She typed 3 words. It's time. Proceed. The response came immediately. Confirmed. Stage 1 initiated. Naomi looked back at the Whitmore estate, glowing like a jewel against the darkening sky. Inside, they were celebrating. Their problem solved. Their son free to marry someone appropriate. Their world secure. They had no idea that the woman they'd just discarded had been holding their entire empire together for the last 6 months. And no one suspected this secret was just the beginning. Naomi drove exactly 3 miles before pulling into the parking lot of a coffee shop she'd discovered 2 years ago. The kind of place the Whitmores would never enter. Too ordinary, too unglamorous, too real. She ordered black coffee and sat by the window, watching Washington, D.C. prepare for the holiday. Families walked past carrying pies. College students hurried home with overstuffed backpacks. Normal people living normal lives, completely unaware that a few miles away, the city's elite were gathering to celebrate cruelty disguised as sophistication. Her phone buzzed. Sarah Chun, her actual best friend, not the carefully curated friends Victoria had approved of. Please tell me you're out. Naomi smiled. I'm out. And the papers? Signed. Good. Now burn their world down. If only Sarah knew how literal that instruction was about to become. Naomi opened her laptop. To anyone watching, she looked like any other woman killing time on Thanksgiving. They'd see her checking email, maybe scrolling social media. They wouldn't see the encrypted portal she accessed, the dashboard that controlled more money than most people could imagine. Novatech Solutions. Her company. The tech empire she'd built from a dorm room idea into a billion-dollar artificial intelligence and data analytics firm. 14 offices across 5 countries. 3,000 employees. Contracts with Fortune 500 companies that needed the kind of predictive modeling and security infrastructure only Novatech could provide. The Whitmores had never asked what she did before Lucas. They'd assumed tech startup meant she'd answered phones or managed social media for someone important. When she'd said she was taking a step back from work to focus on their marriage, they'd heard unemployed and felt validated. Lucas had actually patted her hand once and said, "It's okay that your little company didn't work out. Not everyone is cut out for business." Her little company, the one that had just posted quarterly earnings of $200 million. Naomi pulled up the Whitmore biotech file. She'd been monitoring it for months, ever since her investment team flagged it during a routine pharmaceutical sector analysis. The decline had been steep. A company that had once led in cardiac medication research was now circling the drain, losing market share to younger, more innovative competitors. 6 months ago, Gregory Whitmore had made a desperate move. He'd started seeking investors. Quietly, privately, through back channels that wouldn't alert the board or shareholders that the CEO was panicking. One of those channels had led to Novatech. Naomi remembered the day her acquisitions director, Marcus, had brought her the proposal. Some legacy pharmaceutical company in D.C. needs capital. They're offering favorable terms. Might be worth a look. She'd almost passed. Then she'd seen the name. Whitmore. The meeting had been surreal. Gregory Whitmore, sitting across from her in Novatech's San Francisco headquarters, having no idea who she was. She'd used her maiden name professionally. Naomi Carter was reserved for her personal life. In business, she was N.C. Reyes, CEO and founder. Ms. Reyes, Gregory had said, his voice dripping with the patronizing tone he used when he thought he was the smartest person in the room. Novatech has an impressive portfolio. We believe a partnership would be mutually beneficial. Partnership. He needed a lifeline and called it a partnership. Naomi had listened to his pitch. Whitmore Biotech was developing a new drug for arrhythmia that could save thousands of lives. They just needed capital to complete clinical trials. In return, Novatech would receive preferred stock, board representation, and a significant return on investment when the drug went to market. "And your family is committed to this project?" she'd asked. "Absolutely. The Whitmores have always been committed to saving lives." She'd almost laughed. The man who'd just dismissed his daughter-in-law for not understanding complexity was begging for money from a company he didn't realize she owned. Naomi had made the investment. $45 million. Enough to fund the trials, stabilize the company, and keep the Whitmore name golden in Washington circles. She'd done it through shell companies and intermediary firms. Anonymous. Untraceable. The Whitmores knew they had a new major investor. They had no idea it was the woman serving them coffee at Sunday brunch. But what she did next would shock them, and the truth she'd uncovered would destroy everything they'd built. Her phone buzzed again. Marcus, her acquisitions director. "The press release is ready. Do we send it?" Naomi stared at her reflection in the coffee shop window. She could stop this. Take her settlement, move back to California, pretend the last 3 years never happened. The civilized thing. The quiet thing. The thing they expected. She typed back. "Not yet. I need to confirm something first." Because 3 weeks ago, while reviewing Whitmore Biotech's latest financials, Naomi had noticed something strange. Money moving in patterns that didn't make sense. Payments to consulting firms that didn't seem to consult. Transfers that coincided with competitor announcements. She'd asked Marcus to dig deeper. What he'd found had kept her awake for nights. Naomi pulled up the report now, reading it for the 5th time, making sure she hadn't missed anything. Her coffee went cold as the evidence assembled itself into an undeniable picture. Gregory Whitmore wasn't just mismanaging Whitmore Biotech. He was deliberately sabotaging it. Payments to a rival pharmaceutical company called Medicorp, based in California. Strategic delays in drug trials. Patent information that mysteriously appeared in competitor filings weeks before Whitmore Biotech could file their own. And Medicorp's largest shareholder? A venture capital firm controlled by Senator Richard Blackwell. The same Senator Blackwell who'd blocked legislation that would have fast-tracked FDA approvals for cardiac medications. The same legislation that would have saved Whitmore Biotech millions in development costs. The conspiracy was elegant in its cruelty. Gregory tanks his own company while feeding information to Medicorp. Medicorp profits. Senator Blackwell's portfolio grows. And in return, Blackwell ensures that regulations favor Medicorp's timeline while strangling Whitmore Biotech's ability to compete. The only problem? Naomi's investment had temporarily stabilized Whitmore Biotech. Her $45 million had given them enough runway to potentially succeed despite the sabotage. Gregory must have been furious. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, then recognized the area code. Washington, D.C. "Hello, Miss Carter." A woman's voice, professional but urgent. "This is Jennifer Wu from the Washington Post. I'm following up on the tip we received about Whitmore Biotech. Can you confirm you're the source?" Naomi's heart hammered. She hadn't sent anything to the post. Not yet. I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong person. The email came from an encrypted account, but it referenced Novatech Solutions and included documentation about Senator Blackwell's financial ties to Medicorp. The sender said you could verify the information. Someone had jumped the gun. Someone on her team, or Naomi's blood went cold. Lucas. He'd used her laptop once, months ago, when his died during a trip. She'd been logged into her Novatech systems. Had he seen something? Figured something out? I need to call you back, Naomi said. Miss Carter, if this information is accurate, it's a massive story. Corporate corruption, political conspiracy, potential violations of. Naomi hung up. Her carefully planned reveal, the one she'd been orchestrating for weeks, was unraveling. If the Post ran the story now, before she'd secured all the evidence, the Whitmores would have time to cover their tracks. Blackwell would deny everything. Lawyers would tie it up for years. She needed to move faster. Naomi opened a group chat with her core team, Marcus, Sarah, and David Kim, her head of legal. Change of plans. We go public tonight. Full exposure. I need every document, every transaction, every email ready to release in 3 hours. David responded immediately. That's not enough time to protect you legally. They'll come after you for corporate espionage, breach of fiduciary duty. They can try. I own $45 million worth of their company. I have every right to investigate how my investment is being managed. And what I found is criminal. Let them sue. Sarah sent a gif of someone mic dropping. Marcus was more cautious. If we do this, there's no going back. Your name will be attached to this forever. The Whitmores will know you're the investor. Lucas will know you played him. Naomi looked at the divorce papers in her purse. Her signature, fresh and final. Good, she typed. Let them know exactly who they underestimated. She paid for her coffee and walked back to her car. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Somewhere, the Whitmore Thanksgiving Gala was in full swing. Champagne flowing. Politicians schmoozing. Her ex-husband probably already flirting with whatever socialite his mother had pre-approved. They thought she was gone. Forgotten. A problem solved. And no one suspected this secret was just the beginning. Naomi had flown her core team from San Francisco to Washington, D.C. on Novatech's private jet. By 8 o'clock on Thanksgiving evening, they were assembled in a suite at the Hay Adams Hotel, laptops open, documents spread across every surface, the kind of controlled chaos that preceded something enormous. Marcus laid out the evidence like a prosecutor building a murder case. Bank transfers, emails, shell company formations, a paper trail that connected Gregory Whitmore to Medicorp through 6 degrees of carefully hidden financial instruments. Here's where it gets interesting, Marcus said, pulling up a transaction from 18 months ago. Gregory sells patent information for a cardiac drug to a consulting firm called Apex Strategic. 2 weeks later, that same information appears in a Medicorp patent filing. Apex Strategic's registered agent, a law firm that exclusively represents Senator Blackwell's business interests. David, the lawyer, studied the documents with the intensity of someone who knew they were looking at either a career-making case or a lawsuit that would bankrupt them all. This is wire fraud, securities fraud, possibly RICO if we can prove ongoing conspiracy. Can we prove it? Naomi asked. The financial trail is solid. The emails are circumstantial but damning. The timeline is too perfect to be coincidence. David looked up. But you need to understand what you're taking on. Senator Blackwell sits on the Finance Committee. He has relationships with the SEC, the FBI, the Attorney General. If you go public with this, he'll use every connection he has to bury you. Let him try. Sarah, who'd been quiet until now, spoke up. There's something else. I've been tracking Medicorp's drug pipeline. That cardiac medication they're developing? It's nearly identical to what Whitmore Biotech was working on. But Medicorp's version has modifications that make it patentable as a new drug. Modifications that only someone with access to Whitmore's research would know to make. Gregory gave them everything, Marcus said. The research, the trial data, the manufacturing processes. He basically handed his competitors a blueprint for how to destroy his own company. Naomi felt sick. Why? He's a Whitmore. That company is his legacy. His grandfather founded it. Why would he? Money, David said simply. Look at his personal finances. He's leveraged to the hilt. That estate they live in? Mortgaged 3 times. The cars, the art collection, the lifestyle, it's all debt. He needed an exit strategy. The picture became clear. Gregory couldn't sell Whitmore Biotech outright without admitting failure. But he could slowly bleed it dry while building up Medicorp. Then orchestrate a merger where Medicorp acquires Whitmore Biotech's remaining assets for pennies on the dollar. Gregory walks away with a consulting fee, stock options in Medicorp, and his reputation intact as the man who saved what he could. What about the employees? Naomi asked. Marcus pulled up another file. Whitmore Biotech employs 400 people. Scientists, researchers, manufacturing staff. When the company collapses, and it will without intervention, they lose everything. Pensions, health insurance, severance. Gregory's been systematically raiding the employee benefit funds to cover operational costs. 400 families. 400 people who devoted their careers to saving lives, being sacrificed so Gregory Whitmore could maintain his country club membership. Naomi thought about the woman who'd served her coffee that afternoon. The college students hurrying home. Normal people with normal problems. The kind of people the Whitmores never thought about because they were too busy thinking about themselves. We protect them, she said. The employees. When this goes public, we make sure they're taken care of. That's going to cost you, David warned. I don't care. Set up a severance fund. Full benefits continuation for 6 months. Job placement assistance. Whatever it takes. Sarah smiled. This is why I like you. Naomi's phone buzzed. Jennifer Wu from the Washington Post. Ms. Carter, I need to know if you're going to verify this information. My editor wants to run the story tomorrow, but we need a named source. Anonymous tips aren't enough for something this explosive. Naomi put the call on speaker. Ms. Wu, I'll do better than verify. I'll give you everything. Documents, testimony, financial records. But I need something in return. I'm listening. You hold the story until I say. We're talking hours, not days. And when you publish, you include the full scope. This isn't just about Whitmore Biotech. It's about a senator using his position to manipulate markets for personal gain. It's about corporate executives stealing from their employees. It's about a system that protects the powerful while sacrificing everyone else. Silence on the other end. Then, you're describing a career-defining investigation. I'm describing the truth. Are you in? Send me everything. I'll have our legal team review it. If it checks out, we'll run it. Naomi hung up and looked at her team. We have until midnight to compile everything. Clean files, annotated evidence, timeline of events. Nothing they can dispute or dismiss. This has to be airtight. They worked in focused silence, broken only by the clicking of keyboards and the occasional question. Marcus tracked money. David built the legal framework. Sarah compiled the scientific evidence showing how Medicorp had stolen research. Naomi coordinated, making sure every piece connected to every other piece. At 10 o'clock, her phone rang again. Lucas. She almost didn't answer. Then curiosity won. Naomi. His voice sounded strange. Tight. Where are you? That's not really your concern anymore, is it? My father is looking for you. He says there's been some kind of security breach at the company. Files accessed without authorization. Did you? He stopped. No. You wouldn't even know how to access corporate files. The condescension was automatic. Reflexive. Even now, facing evidence that she'd done exactly what he said she couldn't, Lucas defaulted to underestimating her. What do you want, Lucas? I want to know if you did something stupid. My father's talking about calling the FBI. About corporate espionage. His voice dropped. Naomi, if you took something, if you're trying to hurt us because you're angry about the divorce, you need to stop. Now, before this becomes criminal. She could have laughed. She could have screamed. Instead, she felt nothing. Just a vast, echoing emptiness where love used to live. I didn't take anything that wasn't already mine, she said quietly. And I'm not angry, Lucas. I'm disappointed. There's a difference. What does that mean? It means you had a chance to be good, to be decent, to build something real instead of inheriting something hollow. But you chose comfort over character. You chose your family's approval over your own integrity. And now you're all going to pay for that choice. Are you threatening us? No. I'm just telling you what's coming. What's already in motion. And Lucas. She paused. When this is over, when everything falls apart and you're looking for someone to blame, remember that I tried. I tried to fit into your world. I tried to love you enough for both of us. I tried to be quiet and small and acceptable. And you thanked me by laughing while your family humiliated me. Naomi. She hung up. Marcus looked up from his laptop. That felt good, didn't it? It felt necessary. At 11:30, Jennifer Wu called back. My legal team has reviewed everything. This is bigger than I thought. We're talking congressional hearings, SEC investigations, possible criminal charges. Are you absolutely certain you want to be the face of this? Naomi thought about the 400 employees who'd lose their jobs, the patients who'd die waiting for cardiac medications delayed by political games, the families destroyed by the casual cruelty of people who'd never face consequences. I'm certain. Then we run it tomorrow morning. Front page, above the fold. And Miss Carter? Thank you. For your courage. Courage. Such a small word for such a terrifying leap. Naomi stood at the hotel window, looking out at Washington, D.C. The monuments glowed white against the dark sky. The Capitol building, where Senator Blackwell made laws that enriched his friends and crushed his enemies. The White House, where policies were shaped by whoever paid the most. The Supreme Court, where justice was supposed to live but too often hid behind procedural technicalities. Somewhere out there, the Whitmore Thanksgiving Gala was winding down. Guests departing. Caterers cleaning up. Lucas probably drunk and complaining about his crazy ex-wife. Gregory calculating his next move, unaware that his entire scheme was about to become tomorrow's headline. They thought they'd won. They thought she was gone. They had no idea that the woman they dismissed, degraded, and discarded had just lit a fuse that would burn their world to ash. And no one suspected this secret was just the beginning of their complete destruction. The Washington Post published at 6 a.m. Naomi watched from her hotel room as the story spread across the internet like wildfire. The headline was perfect, brutal in its simplicity. Senator's secret stake. How political power and corporate greed destroyed an American company. By 7, cable news had picked it up. By 8, Senator Blackwell's office was issuing denials. By 9, the SEC had announced an investigation. Naomi's phone exploded. Reporters, investors, former colleagues from her Silicon Valley days wanting to congratulate her, or warn her, or just understand how a tech CEO had taken down a political dynasty before breakfast. She ignored them all except one call. Ms. Carter, this is Agent Rebecca Torres with the FBI's White-Collar Crime Division. We need to speak with you about the allegations in this morning's Post article. I'm available whenever you need me, Agent Torres. I have documentation for everything. We're aware. We've actually been investigating Senator Blackwell for 6 months on an unrelated matter. Your evidence just gave us what we needed. Can you be at our field office by noon? Naomi smiled. I'll be there. The next call came from Lucas. She let it go to voicemail. Then another. And another. 7 calls in 20 minutes before he finally left a message. Naomi, what have you done? My father's lawyers are here. There are news vans outside the estate. My mother is. His voice cracked. You destroyed us. You destroyed everything. I hope you're happy. She deleted the message without finishing it. At 10 o'clock, Marcus knocked on her door with coffee and a tablet showing the market response. Medicorp stock had dropped 42%. Whitmore Biotech, surprisingly, was up 18% on speculation that new management might turn things around. Wall Street loves a good corruption story, Marcus said, especially when there's potential for restructuring. 3 investment firms have already reached out about acquiring Whitmore Biotech's assets. Tell them Novatech is interested in a full acquisition. Fair market value, employee retention guarantees, commitment to completing the cardiac drug trials. And I want Gregory Whitmore's resignation as a condition of the sale. You're going to own the company that your ex-husband's family built. No, I'm going to save the company that Gregory Whitmore tried to destroy. There's a difference. The FBI interview lasted 4 hours. Naomi laid out everything. The anonymous investment, the forensic accounting that revealed the fraud, the connections to Senator Blackwell. Agent Torres listened with the focused intensity of someone who knew they were sitting on a case that would define careers. You took a significant personal risk, Torres said. The Whitmores have resources. They could have buried you in litigation, destroyed your reputation, made your life hell. They already made my life hell, Naomi said quietly. At least this way, 400 employees get to keep their jobs. At least this way, patients get the medication they need. At least this way, the truth matters more than power. Torres nodded. For what it's worth, what you did, that took guts. Most people in your position would have just walked away. I tried walking away. It didn't take. By evening, the dominoes were falling faster than anyone could track. Senator Blackwell announced he wouldn't seek re-election, citing family reasons. Medicorp's CEO resigned. Gregory Whitmore was officially under investigation for securities fraud, wire fraud, and embezzlement. The media loved it. A Thanksgiving scandal, political corruption, corporate betrayal. And at the center of it all, a woman who'd been underestimated, dismissed, and discarded, only to prove she'd been the most dangerous person in the room all along. They thought they controlled everything, but Naomi had the last move. Watch until the end, comment what you would have done, and subscribe to see every shocking twist unfold. Naomi returned to the Whitmore estate one final time, not as Lucas's wife, but as the majority shareholder of Whitmore Biotech. The news vans were gone, but the damage remained. The perfectly manicured lawn looked somehow diminished. The house that had intimidated her 3 years ago now just looked empty. Victoria answered the door. She'd aged a decade overnight. No pearls, no designer dress, just a woman whose world had shattered. You, Victoria whispered. You did this. No, Naomi said gently. Your husband did this. I just made sure everyone knew. We gave you everything. We welcomed you into our family. You gave me nothing but contempt. You welcomed me like a stray dog you hoped would leave before dinner. Victoria's face crumpled. For a moment, Naomi almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Lucas wants to speak with you, Victoria said. He's in his father's study. Naomi found him there, surrounded by boxes. He looked smaller somehow, diminished without his family's empire propping him up. I didn't know, he said without preamble. About my father. About any of it. You have to believe me. I don't have to believe anything anymore, Lucas. That's the gift of divorce. Don't. His voice broke. Don't do that. Don't act like you didn't just destroy my entire family. I didn't destroy your family. Your father did that when he decided stealing from his employees was easier than running an honest company. I just made sure he couldn't keep doing it. Lucas looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Who are you? Really? The woman I married worked at some startup. She was quiet, sweet, supportive. She was never real, Lucas. That woman you married was who I thought I needed to be to make you love me. Smaller, quieter, less threatening to your ego. Naomi set her bag down. The real me built a billion-dollar company from scratch. The real me employs 3,000 people. The real me saw your family's corruption and chose truth over comfort. And the real me? She's done shrinking for men who don't deserve her. We could have fixed this. If you just talked to me. I tried talking to you. For 3 years. You never listened. You heard what you wanted to hear and ignored everything else. Naomi pulled out a document. This is the acquisition agreement. Novatech is purchasing Whitmore Biotech. Fair market value. All 400 employees keep their jobs with full benefits. Your father's employment is terminated immediately. Your mother and sister's consulting positions are also terminated. But you, she paused. You can stay on as a research advisor if you want. Reduced role, reduced pay, but it's something. Lucas stared at the papers. You're offering me a job? In my own family's company. It's not your family's company anymore. It's mine. And I'm offering you a chance to be part of something real. Something ethical. Something that actually helps people. Naomi's voice softened. You were never the problem, Lucas. You were just too weak to stand up to the people who were. Maybe this is your chance to find some courage. He didn't take the papers. I can't work for you. I can't. He shook his head. You win, Naomi. You win everything. I hope it makes you happy. This was never about winning. It was about making sure the truth mattered more than your family's reputation. It was about protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. It was about refusing to stay silent when silence meant more people got hurt. Naomi left the papers on the desk and walked out. She didn't look back. 3 months later, Naomi stood in a renovated warehouse in Oakland, California. The space had been transformed into an art and tech studio for underserved teens. Computer stations on one side, art supplies on the other, and in the middle, possibilities. This is incredible, Sarah said, walking through the space. When did you have time to set this up? When you're not wasting energy on people who don't deserve it. You'd be amazed how much you can accomplish. The Whitmore scandal had faded from headlines, replaced by newer outrages and fresher disasters. Senator Blackwell had resigned in disgrace. Gregory Whitmore was awaiting trial. Medicorp had collapsed under the weight of its own corruption. And Whitmore Biotech, under Naomi's management, it had completed clinical trials for the cardiac medication. FDA approval was expected within 6 months. The 400 employees were still employed, still fighting to save lives, still building something that mattered. Naomi had also established the Ethical Business Foundation, funded with $10 million from her personal wealth. Its mission, to support whistleblowers, protect employees from corporate retaliation, and advocate for transparency in business and politics. Do you ever hear from him? Sarah asked. Lucas? No. Last I heard, he'd moved to Boston, working for a nonprofit. Maybe he found that courage after all. Do you regret it? Any of it? Naomi thought about the girl who'd signed those divorce papers in a marble foyer, hands shaking, heartbreaking. She thought about the woman who'd walked away from that estate with nothing but a small box and a plan for justice. She thought about the 400 families who still had jobs, the patients who'd receive life-saving medication, the precedent set for accountability. I regret the time I wasted trying to be someone I wasn't, Naomi said. But the rest? The exposure, the scandal, the revenge. She smiled. That wasn't revenge. That was justice. And no, I don't regret justice. The studio doors opened, and the first group of teens arrived, eyes wide with possibility. Naomi watched them explore the space, imagining futures they'd never considered before. Kids from neighborhoods where opportunities were rare and second chances even rarer. This was her legacy, not the takedown of corrupt politicians or the salvation of a pharmaceutical company. This, the quiet work of building something good. The steady practice of showing up for people who needed someone to believe in them. The Whitmores had taught her an important lesson, though they'd never intended to. They'd taught her that the most powerful revenge isn't destruction. It's living your life so fully, so ethically, so authentically that you become a reminder of everything they failed to be. Naomi Carter, tech billionaire, whistleblower, and advocate for justice, had finally learned to take up space without apology. She'd learned that being underestimated was sometimes an advantage. She'd learned that the quiet ones, the dismissed ones, the ones people assumed were powerless, those were the ones you should never, ever cross. Because they had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. And that made them unstoppable. Sometimes the greatest power comes not from revenge, but from refusing to shrink yourself for people